How many times did you PCS?
I PCS numerous times. I PCS'd from obviously Great Lakes over in Illinois over to Pensacola, Florida for rescue swimmer school and aircrew school. Then I PCS'd over to San Diego for my A school, or my frac is what it was called, for the air crewmen, where we learned how to, learned all about flying in the helicopters. Then I PCS'd over to Guam to a squadron over there, HSC 25, and then I PCS back to San Diego to another squadron for my last year in the service.
Maybe that's a good way to welcome Travis Smart to Master Military Life. Travis is a Navy veteran, where he PCS numerous times, as y'all just heard, has been out of the service now for about 10 years, helping military members plan their financial futures and ultimately as a mortgage loan originator. So, Travis, thank you for joining me today on Master Military Life.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hopefully that caught everyone off guard. That wasn't my voice when they came on. I'm so excited to talk to you today. What inspired this conversation is that Travis and I have a number of conversations about kind of the psychology of money that we see in the military world. And being one of a top lender on the West Coast, especially for VA loans, you see a lot of financial situations. And so guys, this is the episode where it's like, if you want to get your money straight for 2026, you want to kind of change your relationship with money, you want to put yourself in a position to be able to build wealth, buy a home, pay down debt, and kind of feel confident about your financial future, this is the episode for you. So send it to a friend if you have a friend that has that resolution for 2026, as we just dive in here about how to make the most of your money while you're in the military. So Travis, I'm going to ask you right off the bat, we had just talked about how you were stationed in Guam. And while you were there, like many of our service members, when you're stationed overseas or at specific duty stations, you had COLA. And, we see a lot of our members come back from these duty stations with kind of a different financial perspective or a financial situation because they were able to manage that COLA. So what was your strategy when you were in Guam on managing your COLA and getting the most out of it?
So when I was receiving COLA and I was stationed in Guam, one of the things that the military does is they base how much your COLA is. There's a max amount, but they base how much they're actually paying you on how much your rent is. So for example, when I was in Guam, I believe it was right around 3,500 max for my rank. However, I was living in base housing. I didn't see any bit of it. And even if I would have had any sort of lease in Guam, they would have only paid me for that. So I have a lot of regrets about how I handled it. One of the ways I feel like would be the smartest, or would have been the smartest for me to have done it, and anybody who's going to Guam to do it, is Guam is considered a U.S. territory. And when it comes to, say you're a single sailor, say you are a married sailor, either way, let's start with the single sailor. You buy a house because the price of buying a house in Guam was actually pretty reasonable in comparison to what the BAH was. Well, then you lease room to your friends, or multiple rooms to multiple friends. You put the lease for the max amount that the COLA would be. You receive that. You then are pocketing money, paying for a mortgage and paying that down very quickly. And the options that you would have realistically, especially overseas, because that's the best, honestly, one of the best opportunities to have, is you could keep that house as a rental and do the same thing where you're leasing it to another military member or multiple, or you're going to have the equity to sell it and leave with probably six figures, given how much I would imagine the COLA is today. If you are married, same situation. If you have a mortgage, they're not just paying you what the mortgage is. They are paying you the top amount of the COLA. It's different than a lease. So then you're having the ability to pay down the mortgage quickly, or have the money put aside for possible repairs, possible other investments, or preparing you to buy another home when you get to the States. Because if you do keep that home, some of your entitlement may be tied up in that home, but then you're going to have the funds to put down with partial entitlement to buy a new house in the States. So you're going to have multiple homes, multiple things that are bringing in equity and setting you up for the rest of your life, which I did not do personally.
Man, if we could go back and hack this whole situation, right? I think the reality is that when many of us are new in the military, we were young. And so it's just easy to kind of not dive in and tear back these like loopholes and these layers where we could really use the lifestyle to benefit us and just kind of go with the flow. But honestly, that's what kind of keeps us in the rat race. So that's such a solid recommendation. Like, don't do what everyone else is doing. Like, consider buying the home, consider renting it to your buddies who are stationed there with you. Question, do you know what the delay is? Because if it's based on what your payment is, then they submit it and it's a 60-day delay in terms of how that impacts their overall pay, or I'm sure that's changed over the last, you know, decade.
It depends on how great your admin is within your command. For myself, I was blessed because they submitted it and they updated my pay on the next paycheck. There was
Mm.
still a delay. on it, of course, but I think sometimes it's almost, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's almost like big military doesn't want you to be set up for possibly getting out rather than doing the 20 years.
I don't think that that is a conspiracy theory. I
No.
think that look, any major company,
Mhm.
any major organization, any major program in this world, guys, let's not be naive, right? Their job is retention. And so, yes, they are going to give you what you need to stay, but not necessarily to outgrow. So I don't think that that is a conspiracy theory. I think that that's how the world works. Like,
Absolutely. It's so what people don't realize is it's so expensive to train people. It's so expensive to train our military. I mean, even take into example, I was a rescue swimmer, so I went to rescue swimmer school, then I went to SEER school, which was in Maine, and I went to San Diego, and they're paying for all these different moves. They're paying for this training. And for my job, it was 2 years of training before I was actually even doing the job. That's a lot of money for the military to be shelling out for you to then leave 4 years later because it was a 2 year training pipeline. I had a 6 year contract, so I had 4 years of deployable duty or in service duty. But the biggest thing to me is, yeah, I was 17 when I joined. I had the intentions the same as I'm sure most people do. Oh, this is going to be the rest of my life. But circumstances changed for me that made it so that wasn't going to be my reality. And it's important to set yourself up for the unknown and giving yourself the opportunity to have the ability to get out should you choose that. If you want to stay in, hey, you want to be in the position where you're making a choice based on what you want, just like retiring. Hey, someday I hope to be in the position to not need to work. I want that to be my decision.
Mhm.
Just like in on active duty military, I want to choose to re-enlist because that's what I want, not because I'm stuck and I didn't set myself up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that what this requires is a different psychology around money, right? And sometimes it goes against the grain of what we see, which is what we see in this country, quite frankly. So this isn't even a military thing. One of the best books I've read, I don't know if you've read it, but have you ever read The Psychology of Money?
It's on my list actually for this
Oh, it's
year.
so good. So, guys, if you're listening to this episode, I highly recommend picking it up. It talks about how we think of money and what makes rich people rich and what keeps poor people poor. And essentially, what Travis is asking you to do is to think outside of the box, right? And to do your research and to kind of also really consider looking at your pay differently, right? So, we have the BAH and we have the
Yes, yep.
BAS. And a lot of times these kind of like categories get stuck in your brain, right? Travis, you look at BASs all day long, helping people look at their total pay and help divvy it up and budget out. How do you see kind of the psychology come into play here? And what do you wish more military members did differently?
Well, I think when it comes to your base pay, I believe that the psychology is okay, this is what's paying for the different things I want to do or clothes, stuff like that. Where then you have BAH, which is obviously basic allowance for housing, and BAS, which is your basic allowance for subsistence, which is essentially groceries. I believe that when it came to even my mentality, because I was 17 when I joined, it was okay, BAH is that's the most I should be paying for housing. Oh, BAS, it was completely different. Did I stick within my BAS for my groceries? No, I didn't think about it that hard or that intently because I almost combined my BAS and my base pay into this other category. Whereas we as active duty service members or active duty service members should be looking at their total pay as a salary. Okay, this is my total salary. Based on this total salary, how am I going to break up all of my different expenses? And one of the best things that anybody can do is start a budget. I know we hate the B word. Let's just get that out of the way. We all hate the B word. But the most powerful thing I ever did financially was when I reviewed my previous 3 months bank statements and I just started highlighting them into different categories. And the amount of money that I wasted, where I'm just looking at, oh, I can't pay anything over my BAH, but I had no problem wasting money on crap I didn't even need. That's when I had my reality check. And it's just, wow, when you're actually taking control of your finances and taking control of Amazon's really smart. Ain't nobody better in the industry, in my opinion, than Amazon. You want to know why? How many times have you gotten to the screen where you're about to check out? They give you the full breakdown with the shipping, the tax, all that. Well, Amazon removed that with an order with one click. It's not real anymore. You don't get that
Mhm.
second thought. Well, when you have a bucket and you're intentionally like, okay, I'm going to spend at most $100 or $75 a week in Amazon, then you have your limit and you're taking control of your life. You're taking back control of your finances. that you previously didn't have. And when you are on salary, like you are in the military, okay, you are on a salary. One of the things that I see, regardless of if it's military or civilian world, is you know that you're expecting a paycheck of a certain amount. So it's almost like you strategically put yourself in the position where I'm not going to run out of my money until the day before I'm getting paid again because I know how much I'm going to get paid again. Well, as we've seen recently, and obviously for active duty, a lot of stresses have been with the shutdowns. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, what if I don't get paid? It's not guaranteed, you will get paid at some point, but you don't want to be in the position where, God forbid, they don't pay you right on time and you're out of money. You can't pay for groceries, you can't pay your mortgage or your rent, and
Yeah.
it's really just taking your power back. That's the biggest thing that you could do for yourself, and do it as early as possible.
So recommend this. So for anyone who didn't know, I was in finance before I got into real estate and then ultimately obviously into Pay It Forward. And so budgeting is like my love language. And here's the thing, budgeting and enjoying budgeting and organizing finances and executing on that budget are two separate skills. I want to be very clear about this. So, but it starts with number one, right? And so I love this exercise of export, guys. Everyone has their bank statements. Go in there, export the last 90 days, right? And go through and identify. I think the most powerful thing you can do is identify wants versus needs. And so when we go to click that button of buying and asking ourselves, is this a want or is this a need? And then also asking ourselves, is this a I need this right now or is this I need this for the future? Meaning, if you leave stuff in your Amazon cart for more than 48 hours, more than likely you go back and you delete them, right? Because we are conditioned as Americans, and I'm not gonna fucking feel bad about saying this, Travis. It's not a conspiracy. You are valuable to this economy because you buy shit, okay? And so I legitimately think the value of an American life at this point is how much do they buy and how much do they spend? That is awful. I feel horrible for feeling that way, Travis, but that's where I'm at. I'm a marketing communications person. That's how I see everything is what can I sell them? Everything is marketing, right? And so, but taking the power back from that and saying, I'm going to wait 48 hours to make purchases and ask myself, do I need this or do I want this? Because you're taking the power back from the immediate dopamine hit that we get every time that we see something on the media and we buy it, or that we buy what we think is a solution to a problem. Reality is it's a behavior that we need to change. So the first behavior that we change is stop buying things to solve behavioral changes because it doesn't do anything. How many of us have like a stack of crap in our house that's like, oh, I was going to use that planner, budget my time better. I was going to use, this thing that I never installed and now I can't return because it's been too late. It's like a new normal for this world. So take the power back by doing your budget, identifying what did I buy that I actually needed versus what I wanted, and how much would I have today if I hadn't have bought based on what, right? And because then you can invest in something that actually matters to you. You can invest in a house. You can invest in your, paying down debt. You can invest into a car, like a safer car for your family, an emergency fund, right? But kind of meaninglessly, throwing away $10 or $5 here, it just adds up. So the other thing that I used to do is play this little game in my head because I'm like a gamifier. And so we would do our fixed expenses. So for anyone who doesn't know what your fixed expenses are, it's these standard payments that you have to make every single month, right? And so they usually come out to very similar, right? So you have like, housing, car, insurance, utilities, it's pretty closely going to be the
Cell
same
phones, yeah.
expenses. Yeah, cell phone. But so once those are paid, if you just do the math, you have a certain dollar amount every single day beyond those things, right? And so I used to play this game in my head. How to not spend that money. So maybe you have $50 left a day, right? $35 left a day. And like my only goal is to get through today without spending the $35. And that's so silly, but like make yourself a damn sticker chart. Like we are very simple people. We can be motivated by such simple things of like, I've gone 7 days without spending the $35. That goes into your savings. Like sorry, I could talk about budgeting and saving all day long. I was like that kid in college who was like pulling up CDs. Like I had like $1,000 in my savings. And I was like, if I put in a CD and it has 4%, then it would be like 1,000, this amount, like I just love that stuff. You
Well, and
gotta
I
love it.
think I always think about it when it comes to, hey, when you feel the need for that immediate validation, and it comes to most things in life, don't make a long-term decision on a short-term emotion. And to be honest with you, wasting money is a long-term decision. That is the true reality of it. And we all want that immediate serotonin, dopamine hit, that immediate edification. But
Hmm.
I think that sometimes it's almost like this desire to fit in, right? Everybody wants to say, oh, it's hard, it's the economy, it's all these different things. And it's a justification to fall into that. I mean, I saw this gentleman who made the same exact amount as me, everything else, and he drove a complete POS car. It got him from A to B. He would bring his lunch every single day. It was the same thing. He literally, when he got out of the service, he had over six figures, and he finished out of the military as a E4 after 6 years, and he had six figures. And that wasn't because he had anything handed to him. It was because he was very disciplined in what he was doing. And if he can do it, that means anybody could do it. I could have done it. And I'm not coming from a place of any sort of ego or arrogance, because my reality is that I was that guy who was in the command, who married the person that everybody said not to. I had a kid when I was 20 years old. I was the single dad at 21. I'm not coming from this place of ignorance of, oh, I was Mr. Perfect, but I could have been better positioned to get out than I was. And even though I had those circumstances, I have to take ownership of my shortcomings and my bad decisions. And
Yeah.
that's why I love doing what I do today.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's easier to see when it's someone else's situation also, right? And so, and you're removed, right? Like we're 10 years older than we were when we made all of those decisions. So I was sharing with you before we got on, me and Brad racked up a little bit of debt when we first got in, just, learning. We were 20, 25, 26, which is ancient in military world, but still like learning. We were in Southern California where things were really expensive. And, we racked up a little bit of debt. And I remember going to my mom and just being like, have you ever done, I had so much shame around asking, like, have you ever done like a 0% transfer, like credit card transfer? Like, so they give you like 18 months or something to pay it down. Like, what's the trick? Like, am I missing something here? Like, am I going to screw up something for our family? And I was in finance, guys, before this. So this is not like a crazy question to ask, but the crazy thing to me now looking back is like the shame around that. And so just for us guys, a heads up, there wasn't a loophole. It wasn't like a trick, right? Just we transferred it over, we paid it down, and that gave us the ability to be debt free. Because at that point, we had probably 6 or 7 grand of that debt, and the monthly payment of the interest was like 200, $300 a month. I was like, we're never going to make a dent on this thing. But I do have a question, because you
Mhm.
obviously helping people with their mortgages. This was after we had bought a house. If someone's in a similar situation, maybe they have like $3,000, $4,000 of credit card debt right now. How does that impact their overall financial situation when it comes to buying a home? And should they wait till after they close on their home to do a transfer like that? Does that even matter?
One of the biggest things is obviously recent inquiries can have a slight impact on credit, but at the end of the day, what we're looking at is debt to income. Because to be honest with you, VA loans don't harp on your credit score near as much as conventional loans do. So long as your credit score is 620 or above, you're going to get the best pricing on a VA loan. Whereas if this was a conventional loan, you would be looking at not the best pricing. So to me, from a credit card standpoint, the average interest rate right now on a credit card, I believe it is over 20%. Okay. There are all the different credit card companies want you to open up an account with them. They want you to do a balance transfer. So what do? They give you either very, like a 0% introductory rate for a first year, or a very low introductory rate. And when it comes to actually doing the balance transfer, hey, do you shut down the other card when it has a zero balance? No, you don't close it. You keep it open, you don't use it. You be very disciplined with that. And then you start working on paying off that balance at the 0%. But the other thing that is absolutely amazing about VA loans that other loans can't, this does not actually associate with other loans, is a seller's concessions can actually go towards paying off a borrower or vet service member's debt. No other loan allows for that. So you can do a balance transfer to get the 0% or lower rate. Don't close your credit card, okay? That actually is a detriment to your credit. Keep it at a zero balance. Make sure you're paying attention, because some cards do have annual fees and you would hate to miss a payment. So make sure you're again taking control of your finances. But there are so many different powerful things that the VA loan allows for that no other loan does. So knowledge is power. And sometimes, transparently, the best people to go to for financial advice are not the people whose financial position you don't want to be in.
Mm.
So there are people in our industry or in my industry that can relate to you, like myself. That's a big reason why I'm in this industry is because, hey, I can't change what I did during my time in the service, but I can help those not make the same mistakes because, the saying, the difference between a smart person and a wise person. A smart person learns from their own mistakes, and a wise person learns from the mistakes of others. The Lord knew when He made me that my last name should be Smart, because I sure as hell had to learn from my own mistakes. Y'all don't have to. You don't
Yeah.
have to.
I love that. Let's talk about seller concessions a little bit
Mhm.
more because the real estate market is changing. What
Mhm.
is a seller concession?
Seller concession is a credit that a seller gives that can go towards numerous things. So one of the amazing things, again, there's so many amazing things about the VA loan. It is a huge, powerful benefit that you have. In my personal opinion, it goes like this. Obviously, VA hospital and medical stuff after you get out, that's great. VA loan, then the GI Bill. To be honest with you, in my experience and in my opinion, that is the way of the benefit, the order of the benefits. Well, when it comes to when you buy a house using a VA loan, as we all know, I'm sure we do not have to put money down, but there are still closing costs. There are costs associated with closing a transaction on a home. Things like the escrow or title fees, appraisal fees, insurance, property taxes, so on and so forth, possibly interest rate buy downs. Well, if you do not negotiate or if you don't have your agent negotiate a seller covering those costs, you have to pay those at closing. Those can go towards a multitude of different things, including obviously just the normal closing costs. You could get a interest rate buy down or a temporary buy down. They can pay off your debt or partially pay off your debt, or what do we hate? Why do we stay in our rentals for the full 12 months? Because it costs money to break a lease. It can also cover that expense. So it's such a powerful thing. And to be honest with you, when I got my rental in San Diego for the last year I was in the service, I had to pay first and last month's rent, and a security deposit. And when it came time for me to leave, I didn't get anything back on the security deposit. Whereas if you close or if you buy a house and you have the seller cover all of your closing costs, say you were to buy a house and you close on March 15th, okay? And the seller covers all your closing costs, you can get your deposit that is given on transaction refunded to you, and your first mortgage payment isn't due till May 1st. All the while you're collecting your BAH. So truly, you could actually, with a VA loan, buy a home for less money out of pocket than securing a rental, which is amazing.
Let's talk about this because when I was production in San Diego, I would strategically like to close the first week of the month. So I like to close on like the 4th or the 5th. So it's well after the first. And what Travis is saying is that when you pay rent, you pay it up front. Okay. So I'm paying you on the 1st for the month of February, right? But when you're paying your mortgage, you're paying it in arrears. Okay. So which means that if I close on the 4th, I am not going to have a house payment until when?
After the next full month, the first of the following month. So,
So pocket it, guys. This is a huge tip for our PCSing families. Take what would have been your mortgage payment and put it in your savings account. Okay. And so whenever we went to refi, me and Brad, or whenever we buy a new house, that was always the plan. It's not we're gonna use that to buy a fridge, we're gonna use that to buy. No, like if you have concerns about having an emergency fund, this is where you can strategically talk to your agent and your lender about closing at the right time of the month to make sure that you won't have a payment for the longest time possible. So you can then pay yourself back and put it into savings or pay down credit card debt if you have some of that left over. This is a huge loophole that not enough people are talking about. Like
I
when you
completely,
close in the month with a VA loan really matters.
absolutely, I completely agree with you. And the other slight tip I would give a first-time home buyer, we all want it all and we all want it right now. Hey, you don't need to have every room furnished. Be smart. You don't have to get everything all at once. It's just like, hey, let's get couch for the first 3 months, then we're going to get a kitchen table, then we're going to get these different things. You all probably deploy, and I promise you, you're not living in a lap of luxury, especially if you're in the Navy and you're on a ship. You don't need it to prove anything to anybody. So,
100%. I will say when we and Brad bought our first house, probably 50% of the house was empty, and 100% of our items were secondhand off of Marketplace or from a IKEA dining room table. It was the only thing that we bought really new. I think we bought like a new mattress. But I want you guys to hear me say that because I think sometimes we look at people who are 10 years into this thing or, 10 years removed, and it's like we want to buy into that lifestyle. Like that lifestyle is earned by the secondhand crap that we lived on for while my kids were young too. I don't know about you, Travis, but I'm like, I'm not buying a new couch right now. I have a 6-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, and I have a 1-year-old, and this man is deployed. So me buying a new couch is completely against what is best for this family because it's going to stress me out. It's going to get damaged. And like financially, it just doesn't make any sense. When I could buy something off a marketplace, I could buy something secondhand and I could make it obviously nice enough for the family, but ultimately also then not be financially stressed about whether or not my toddlers are going to spill juice on it. Because guys, spoiler alert, your toddlers are going to spill juice on it.
Well, and the other thing too is there's so many different associations that are out there to help you. I cannot recall which one helped me when I got to San Diego, but I got the right after I moved into my apartment, there was, I think I might have been Navy Marine Corps Relief. I can't recall exactly which organization, but they gave me a bunch of furniture free of charge entirely. Was it nice? No, it wasn't. But who cares? You know what I mean? It's free. You get what it was free. It wasn't horrible. And there are so many different resources for you, and you make sure you're using them. Make sure you're learning about them and finding out about them, because I did not even, to this day, I am the assembly required. My couch was assembly required to this day. I was putting that that thing came in like 4 boxes. It was
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Yep. Yep. So question, if someone is coming up on like their last 12 months of
Mhm.
service, right? The future is unknown. It's uncertain. What should they be doing financially to kind of prepare themselves for that transition?
The biggest things that you want to be in is in the position of knowing what you're doing 12 months following, knowing if, hey, I am going to get out. Okay. I need to prepare myself for that. What am I going to do when I get out? For me, I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. So I thought, okay, I'm a rescue swimmer. Obviously, law enforcement's probably going to be the pathway for me. How do I prepare for that? How do I set myself up financially for that? And one of the biggest blessings that happened for me was I went on a deployment 6 months before I was getting out. So went on a 5-month deployment. And you know what's amazing about when you go on a deployment? That's actually considered military orders, and you can't be penalized for breaking a lease due to military orders. So for me, what did I do? I got my admin to give me a letter to give to the leasing office of the apartment complex I was in. I broke the lease, no penalties for that because they cannot penalize you. I then put my stuff in a storage unit that was $200 a month. And what did I pocketed that BAH? What was I going to be spending money on deployment? And some of you, if you are married, obviously that may not be your reality, of course. But if you are in a position where you can do something like that, absolutely do it. Put yourself in the position of, hey, I'm getting out, but I'm putting myself in the place of being able to. And if you're further ahead than 12 months out, be smart with your leave. I was stationed in Guam. I didn't have a round trip plane ticket to the States was more than I made in a month. So I wasn't going back to this. I wasn't taking leave. When I got out of the service, even at 6 years, I had 3 months of terminal leave where I was for me, working on getting a job. I did a job bartending while I was still getting paid by the military, and I was no longer living in San Diego. So that BAH was huge in comparison to what I was paying for my apartment, and really helped get myself in the position. But the other things as well is now there are so many programs that really are out there to help you transition out. There's this one program where they'll actually pay you your pay, military pay. They'll give you 6 months to do an on-the-job training.
SkillBridge.
Yeah, still SkillBridge. Yep, absolutely. And
Yep.
that was
Look
not
into
around when I was
SkillBridge.
in.
It is an incredible program to help you transition out and get on-site real training and support
Mhm.
into the career that you plan on moving into.
Absolutely. And the other things to me is just as many qualifications as you can get that actually correlate to the civilian world, get them. I mean, for me, I was a rescue swimmer. I should have gone my EMT. I didn't. I could have gone my EMT. I didn't. I could have used tuition assistance. I didn't. And instead, I'm like, well, what does that correlate to in the civilian world? Well, I can go be a lifeguard over at the YMCA, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I was a single dad. How could
Mhm.
not be my reality? And other thing, and this is something I didn't cover, but I wish I would have a little bit ago, is your first home, not your dream home, guys. Like, not at all. It is the stepping stone to get there. That's what's going to help you earn it. Okay. We all want the white picket fence. There's a stepping stone before that, and it ain't the white picket fence. Just
Mm.
not.
If someone is done in the next 12 months, how does that impact the VA loan? Is this something that we hear a lot about. I'm planning on buying a house, we're moving home, I'm getting out, only for service members to find that you don't have a contract. So, Travis, what should people be prepared for when it comes to buying a home once they get out?
Absolutely. So when you're getting out, if you have 12 months or less remaining on your EAOS or end of active service obligation, you cannot close on a VA loan unless there is 12 months or more remaining after the day you close. So if you're less than a year out, your income is not going to be considered usable. And the reason being is mortgage loans view, is this income going to be sustainable for minimum? It says minimum of 3 years, but it is a requirement that has to be at least 1 year remaining on your contract on active duty. And just so y'all know, this is something I learned the hard way. I didn't even think about getting LASIK surgery until I had 11 months left on my contract. That doesn't just go for VA loans. They wouldn't let me get LASIK because I didn't have 12 months, remaining on my active duty contract. So it doesn't just it's not just a VA loan thing. It's like back, the military
It's
doesn't
like your
want more
benefits
money.
start tapering off.
They do.
Ooh, better. Okay, we should probably do a whole episode on that. I didn't even consider beyond the VA loan, kind of what starts to change when you're in your last 12 months. Interesting. So we're seeing a lot of interest rate changes happening right now. People are starting to get those, 20 letters a week that guess what, guys? You too could refinance your VA loan. But if you're active duty, right, this is a different conversation. And, I always had clients calling me, be like, hey, we're considering refining. And obviously I was only on the real estate side, guys. I have, my incredible lending team talk on the lending side, but coming from the math of the finance side, I was like, let's talk about what break-even point is and what that means. And so I think people are learning the hard way right now that there is a cost to refining, even if that cost is out of pocket. When someone's active duty and they want a lower interest rate, how do you talk them through that process to make sure it's actually the right choice for them? Like, what does that math look like?
The first question that I ask is what is their intention with that home and for how long? That is the first question to consider. Another thing that you have to take into consideration is the VA has a funding fee. So if you do a streamline or an interest rate reduction loan via IRRRL, there's a 0.5% of your loan amount that is then financed into the new loan. So on average, if you are going to refinance or do an IRRRL, depending on how it's structured, or even a permanent rate buy down, on average, it takes about 2.5 to 3.5 years for you to break even from that. The VA's calculation to do a interest rate reduction loan is based on a cost to recoup. So a lot of lenders, what they'll say is, well, if this wasn't advantageous to you, the VA wouldn't let me do it. Well, it doesn't really take into consideration the points that are paid. And more often than not, and I get those mailers that show me in huge print 4.875 interest rate or 4.99 interest rate. All they're trying to do is get you to call, and they're going to mask and they're going to sell you on how you could skip payments, how it's no money out of pocket, how your rate's going to be XYZ. But really, they're building in thousands upon thousands of dollars of cost into that. And if your intention is, hey, I'm going to move out of this house, or I want to sell this house in 3 years, are you going to be able to profit or actually get equity out of your home when you sell it? Because most lenders that are sending you those mailers, they don't care about your future. They care about getting a loan. They care about getting a loan closed. I literally just had a conversation yesterday. One of my good friends, his brother is on active duty. And he called me and he said, well, they're going to be wanting to sell their house in 2 years, but he can lower his interest rate by 0.75%. And without hesitation, I was like, that is not going to help him in the long run. That short-term savings he said he'd save $125 a month, and he's selling this house in 2 years. Okay, $125 times 24 months. Guarantee you the fees are probably going to be higher for them to do it than that 2,400.
Yeah. And then what we're seeing is that families are then not having equity when it comes time to sell and being stuck with the house and having to rent it or having to be like a subject to sale. So guys, the thing is that it may not cost you something out of pocket, but it costs you the equity that you have in your home. And so whenever you get these letters, just keep that in mind and call our team, tap in, guys, click on the link below, which I'm sure wherever you're watching this, I have some sort of link below, because our entire team are veterans themselves. No one's going to be like, you're going to get the answer. Don't do it. Okay. If someone's calling you to get your VA loan refi business, it's because they want to refi your loan. They want that business, right? But if you're calling for, kind of update on this is my situation, this is my timeline, what's going to make sense for me in the long term, this would essentially be a safe place to get that answer in a pressure-free zone. So feel free to click that link below and connect with us. We're happy to walk you through what break-even point looks like. Yeah, that break-even point looks like based on what your goals are. So,
And something else to I want to talk about just a little bit
mhm.
is do not allow a non-service member to assume your VA loan because your entitlement will be tied to that house for as long as that person has that loan. And if they did not have their own entitlement, your entitlement is not replaced. And I recently had a veteran who wanted to use their VA loan, didn't understand that their entitlement was going to be stuck in that house and I guarantee you that that loan's not going to get paid off anytime soon. That rate was 2.75 that he had. That person's in no rush whatsoever to pay off that loan. And in the meantime, he has to bring a good amount of money to be able to use his partial entitlement. So it's a great opportunity for you to assume somebody else's. That's wonderful for you. You can allow a person to use their entitlement to assume your VA loan, but do not let
I
somebody
was going to
else
say, let's
have
talk
your
about this
money.
for a minute.
Mhm,
Military member to military member. I
mhm.
am eligible for the VA loan. I am eligible for the VA loan. Does my entitlement, when I buy, does my entitlement replace theirs so that way theirs is free?
Yes, it does.
Okay, that is a huge takeaway, guys. This is a big plug right now for our military matchmaker program with PCS Pay It Forward. We have lists of military home sellers who have VA assumable loans, who want to sell and or ready to rent. Please tap in because when it's military to military, there's that problem doesn't exist. But when you sell to someone who does not have eligibility themselves, whether that's a civilian essentially, right? Then your entitlement is tied up and that negatively impacts you. So it's just so important that if you're looking to do that, that is a military member who's also eligible, who is buying the property.
Absolutely. And the average age of a first-time home buyer today is 40 years old. Get a house, buy a home as soon as possible because the average person whose net worth is between 100,000 and 10 million, over 68% of that on average is in real estate. The sooner you own a home, the sooner you'll be in a position to retire someday. It's not about the here and now, it's about how do you want to feel at 50, at 60, at 70? And the other things to consider is obviously, hey, you have different things like TSP as well. When it comes to a retirement plan, you need to understand that you're not going to access those funds until you are retirement age versus if you own real estate. And if you own real estate, you can tap into your equity. You could sell your home and be able to utilize that. You can get a home equity line of credit. There's things that you could do to access those funds where they're not tied up until you're 60. And if you take it out before, you're paying a penalty. So both are amazing things. I'm a huge believer in real estate. And I think that we all can agree, especially look at today. Look at the stock market today. Look at the S&P 500 today. Look at the NASDAQ today. Look at crypto. Look at Bitcoin. Look at silver, gold. Everything is on the way down right now.
Yeah.
You're not going to, I mean, obviously 2008 happened, not going to happen again. You're not going to see that happen to a home. You're not going to lose all this equity overnight, like what we're seeing happen in the stock markets right now.
Yeah, it's someone who was in finance, I know the incredible amount that you would have to save to be able to pay yourself and replace your income, right? And for most people, it's not possible, but it is possible that when you have access to an incredible tool like the 0% down VA home loan, you could buy a home for a minimal amount down. You could hold on to that home for a very long period of time, and that it creates an additional pension for you when you retire, right? Because as rental amounts increase year over year, your mortgage stays level and the same, right? And so when it comes to you getting out, you could get $800 a month from those rentals, sometimes even more, depending on where you're at and what's happened in the market, right? And that in order to generate that amount, like a monthly payment for yourself from actual retirement accounts, would be over $1 million. I'll do the actual math and I'll put it in the show notes, but it's significant. It's not plausible for the average American family to save a nest egg anymore. And quite frankly, I feel like that's the conspiracy. That's the lie. It is possible through real estate, and more than ever, it's possible with the VA home loan because you don't have to save the standard 3.5%, 5% that other people do, which is a barrier to entry. They have removed the barrier of entry, guys. This is like the thing to lean into if you're looking for financial security. Now, the question is always, well, I'm going to leave in 5 years. What if I can't sell it, right? Be prepared to be a landlord. Guess what? PCS Pay It Forward would love to help you rent your home. Put it in the group. We have another military family who would love to rent it from you, right? It's very rare that your home will not rent for more than the mortgage. Okay. And I do have some listeners right now who are like, well, we're in that situation, Lauren, right now, so screw you. I'm sorry, you're in a rare situation. It's awful that it's happening at this moment, but in the last 10 years, 15, 20 years, that was very rare. So, we'll get past this pocket of time, things will adjust, things will straighten out, and I see a very bright future when it comes to real estate and what it can do for our military families in terms of creating income and ultimately, helping them build wealth. So, Travis,
And
thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like we covered a lot of topics and there's still so much more to talk about. So we're probably gonna have to do a part 2 of this, but you are hoping to get support on your finances, budget better, save better, pay down debt, tap into that VA home loan. Send us a message on the page, guys. We have a team of people. Travis is here to help. He is available to walk you through your situation and help you come up with the best solution for you and your family. So Travis, thanks for coming.
hey, thank you so much for having me.